Hey there, biology students, Mr. Harvey here. We're going to go through a couple of the problems on the energy flow outline to make sure you know how to complete the ecological pyramids. Okay, so we're going to look at the sample first. In this example, we were given an ecosystem that gives us the biomass of different trophic levels. So we have producers, primary consumers, secondary, and tertiary consumers. The producers have 585 kilograms. Primary consumers 77 kilograms, and that's the total weight of the entire trophic level. The way we graph that is a little unique, so I want to show you how this graph works. So on the x-axis we put the label biomass of organisms, and then we put 0 in the middle, and the reason we do that is we want to stack our pyramid so that each bar is centered. And so the way this works is we take this 585 and we basically split it. So half of that is going to the left of 0 and half of that is going to the right. So if you look at the level, these are each about 290. And if you double that, that gets you 585. And then here for the primary consumers, again, we split that 77 in half. So about 38 this way and about 38 this way, and total that equals 77. So let's look at how you're going to apply that in the first problem you have to solve. So this is an ecosystem that shows us number of individuals, and you can see the numbers there, starting with producers about 34,000, primary consumers 3,368. So let's go down to the graph. Now this has already been set up for you. So we have the label, number of individuals, and then we have, again, 0 in the middle, and then the first bar has been completed. This is our producers, which are 34,000. So that means there's about 34,000 plants. On the grid lines, notice that each grid line here would be worth 2,000. Okay, so this line here would be 2,000. Then we have 4,000. 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. So if we go from 0 to the left, this is supposed to represent roughly 17,000. And to the right, that's also roughly 17,000. And if you add the total width of that, that's where we're getting this 34,000 from. So let's look at how you would do the next bar. So the primary consumers, there are 3,368 of those. And we can round these. We don't have to be really exact with these graphs. Okay, but if we round that, that's roughly about 1,800 or 1,900 primary consumers. So how would we do that? Well, we would want to say, okay, so to graph that 3,368, we want to make a bar that goes about 1,900 to the left and about 1,900 to the right. Again, remember each grid line here is only 2,000, so we're going to make that pretty close to the edge of that, and we want to make this bar as high as the other one. So we would make a bar that looks about like this. So the total width of that bar is 3,368. Okay. For the next graph, we have to do the same thing. So we're going to graph the biomass here of producers and all our consumers. There is no label, so you're going to have to start by labeling the x-axis. You'll have to come up with a scale. Again, you would want to start with 0, okay, being here, and then scale it out so you can get that. So the producers are the biggest level, 68,000. So you'd want to be going about almost 40,000 to the left, or sorry, 35,000 to the left, about 35,000 to the right. So scale it so that you can get that 68,000 taking up most of that width. And then the y-axis label, again, if you look at our sample here, is just the trophic levels. So what is each bar representing? I added to this one the numbers, which can be helpful. You don't have to do that, but I find that's a helpful way to set up the graphs. Okay. Now for number 9, this one is a little different. So the first thing you're doing is calculating the averages of all the percents from the bottom rows of the tables for problems 7 and 8. So let's look at what you had to do there. Okay. So we'll go to problem 7. What you had to do here was figure out how much each trophic level is as a percentage of the previous trophic level. So what we had to do here is say, okay, there are 34,000 producers. There's about 3,368 primary consumers. We take those primary consumers, divide by the number of producers, multiply by 100. We can round that, of course, and that will give us a percent of primary consumers, showing how much of the producers are basically transferring. We do the same thing for the next trophic level. So notice what we do here. We take the number of secondary consumers, divide by the number of primary consumers, multiply by 100, and that gives us secondary consumers as a percentage of primary consumers. We'll do the same thing here with tertiary. Take that 41, divide by 383, multiply by 100, and that will give us percentage of tertiary consumers. So for problem 9, we should already have calculated all of these percentages for problem 7, and then all of these percentages from problem 8. And the first thing we're going to do in problem 9 is we're going to take all 6 of those numbers and calculate an average and put it here. Okay, and that will be one percentage number. Now, the last step is to apply that percentage to our ecosystem here. So notice I've kind of given you some tips on how to do this. Let's say, for example, that the number I calculated here was, let's just say it's like 12%. Okay, I can't write on there, but let's say it's 12%. What I would do is I would take the amount of energy in the sun, which is 1.9 million joules. I'm going to multiply that by 0.12 being the decimal form of 12%. And I multiply 1.9 million by 0.12. That'll give me how much energy is transferred to producers. Then I would take that number, multiply that by 0.12 to get the amount of energy in the primary consumers. And I would keep doing that for the other trophic levels. So I would take the amount of energy in the primary consumers, multiply by 0.12 to get the secondary consumer energy level. Okay, and what that should do, like the others, is give us a set of numbers to make an energy pyramid for this last one. And there's a little note here that you do not need to include the sun, okay, because then it's not a living thing. We're only going to include these trophic levels in our ecological pyramid. So you would start with the amount of energy in the producers. Okay, so whatever percentage, again, you get here, that percentage is what you multiply each of these trophic levels by to get the energy amount in the next trophic level. All right, I hope that helps, and good luck, and have fun completing the energy flow outline.